Hey, have you ever considered getting one of these things? Great, keep watching because here's some advice from a professional fox.
I don't really appreciate how this is making purple lines on the screen. That is very annoying and scary. This laptop is old and it could blow up at any second. So something that tends to be quite difficult and seems difficult and is difficult is improvisation. I am not very good at it, and I cannot read a script while wearing this because I can't see very well and the screen is tiny. That's pretty good. I can't see my script for shit though. But we can just re-record this as many times as we need. Well, welcome back. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be doing the Fursuit commissioning video by me, Orange Fox Thing, with my tongue the wrong direction. So, if you've ever remotely considered getting one of these, this is a good video to watch. So, welcome. Thank you for watching my videos. So basically today I'm going to go through the entire process of Fursuit commissioning, what everything you need to do, everything that goes into it, the entire process, along with a lot of like tricks and stuff that can make the process a little easier, stuff that I would recommend. Basically everything you need to know as a commissioner for the entire suit making process. So yeah, if you're as weird as I am, and if you've remotely considered dressing up as a giant animal thing, or even that sounds appealing, that this is definitely the correct video. You're in the right place. Congratulations. We're weird here. So let's lay down some foundational things, like what exactly these things are, what purpose do they serve. So let's just go ahead and get started with the big question. What are these? What are they for? What do they do? Well, if you're watching this, congratulations, you have found the cosplaying, costume-wearing fandom. And to put it really simple, funny cosplay. These suits are essentially just big costumes. Most people get them custom built for their specific character that they make. People tend to make their own character of some sort. Whether they identify with that character or not is basically up to them. Some do, some don't, doesn't matter. These suits, essentially, to put it as bare bones as I possibly can, is they act as a median between people's character and themselves. So that's mainly what these things are used for. It's a cosplaying fandom. You dress up in dorky things and you just be silly for a while. Let's talk about the different types of suits that you can get. So the most common ones you are going to see are full suits and partial suits. So these suits come in a lot of different forms. You'll see people with basically plantigrade and digigrade suits. Now, plantigrade just means basically human leg, so straight leg. It's this, essentially. Human leg. Skinny. So the plantigrade legs are skinny, human-like. There's no foam at all in the legs. It's just the bodysuit that goes down to your ankle, basically, and then it connects to the foot paws. And there's no extra foam anywhere. I mean, you have the tail too, but you know, that's got foam in it, but that doesn't quite count. That doesn't count. And then another common variant you're going to see is digigrade legs. With digigrade, then you have the more kind of bigger legs that you see. Those were kind of a little more popular a couple years back, but you'll still see plenty of those. Now the legs are very big because they have foam in the front and back to make it look kind of like you have an animal appendage for legs. So like your leg is sitting essentially in the middle, but you have like foam on the front and the back, so it makes it look like it kind of curves. Typically the digigrade variants look a little more animalistic, but they come at the cost of being a little more expensive and a little, actually a lot more difficult to transport because you can't simply just fold it like a normal garment or a piece of clothing. Nowadays, most people just tend to roll with the plantigrade ones like this suit, because they're just a lot easier to transport and move around and ship. You have to work out a lot of logistics if you're planning on getting a digigrade suit. So if that's your style, great. that's just kind of the cost it comes at. Most people prefer plantigrade because they're just way easier to transport. That's why I got mine this way. It's quite cool, but those are very bulky suits. Now, I would argue the most common type of suit you're going to see is not actually full suits, but it's actually partialing. Again, because they're just easy to wear. Full suits tend to be not like cumbersome, but they tend to be pretty warm, and it can get kind of you can get pretty fatigued just wearing them, so you can't like wear them for a really extended amount of time. As where if you partial, you can wear that pretty much all day if you wanted to. It's essentially just the head and the paws and a tail, which I don't think. There you go. It just comes down to like personal preference of what you want to do with it. When it comes with a partial, you can, combine it with a lot of different other costumes where your just normal human body is the rest of the costume and not so much the body suit like this. That's something to keep in mind, is that when you buy a full suit, you also get a partial suit too. But yeah, you can do a lot of really cool combinations. Later in the video, I might actually go to partial because this is quite warm, and I'll just show you what you can do with that. But those tend to be pretty popular too. Depending on the maker, the paws will either have like a sleeve, but no bodysuit, or just detachable ones like this and some feet. It just depends on your maker, but we'll get into maker specifics later. But of course, when you have a partial suit, it does not include this bodysuit at all. So the biggest part, I would say, is missing, and that's left to you to really fill in what you want to do with that. But that being said, you can also do that with full suits as well. I can totally put on a cool piece of clothing or another costume on top of this one if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that because it's incredibly hot to do that, and I need to record for some time more, so I'm not going to try to overheat. But yeah, that's a quick rundown of like the most common suits that you're really going to see at Fur Spaces. Yeah, you're going to see full plantigrade suits, full digigrade suits, and then partial suits. And so a little more foundational stuff. I think it's necessary that I talk a little bit about style when you're considering commissioning a suit, because that's also pretty important. Like, what exactly are you looking for in getting one of these? Because there's a lot of options. There's a lot of options you can get. Now, the definition of style is very gray. It's going to range between person to person. It's very interpretive just because it's art. So we're going to go off of my definition. Full suit, partial suit, and then you have the three common types, or most common types of styles that you're going to see. Cartoony, semi-realistic, and realistic. This suit is a cartoony suit, obviously. This is a fun character. Things are kind of exaggerated. This is not what an actual animal looks like, but more like a cartoon that you would see. This is the most common that you're going to see, and in my opinion, it's one of the most iconic within the furry fandom. When people hear that term furry, they think of this type of suit, the cartoony ones that just look all happy and cute like this. So like this is these suits are typically based off of like digital art. The expressions tend to be a little more expressive, a little bigger. The colors tend to be brighter. Some of the body parts tend to be exaggerated. See, like this is not what an actual fox paw looks like. Now, the other most common one you're going to see is actually realistic. We'll get to semi-realistic in just a moment. Semi-realistic is the bridge between realistic, so I'll go over realistic first. Somebody's dying in the hallway. Okay, I think they're done trying to move a hippopotamus up the staircase. At least that's what it sounded like. So a realistic suit is basically not the opposite of this, but it's quite different. It basically takes all the animalistic features of an actual animal and tries to make that as lifelike as possible in a costume. Of course, these are anthropomorphized suits, so there is the human element to it. Obviously, the suit is going to have a human form because it is, in fact, a person wearing it underneath of it. But yeah, besides the obvious anthro part, everything else is going to be as animalistic as possible. And then there's the kind of the oddball out, which is semi-realistic suits. Just because it's kind of like an outlier doesn't mean they're bad. I think these are some of the best looking suits you can get, but they're just kind of rare because I think they're relatively difficult to get correct. But when you do get them correct, oh, they're gorgeous. They look really good. Realistic, semi-realistic suits, I say they lean more towards realistic, but they do have a little bit of the characteristics of the cartoony suits. That's kind of like that with semi-realistic suits too. So the eyes are slightly exaggerated to look more expressive, And some of the other things are exaggerated, like kind of like the paws, maybe the tail, and some of the facial expressions. But the proportions are relatively realistic, like you would see on a realistic suit. So it's a fine balance, but when you get that fine balance, man, does it look good. But yeah, those are like the 3 most common types or styles of suits, I would say. Outside of like the structural ones, like I said, partial, plantigrade, digigrade, these are like the styles. These are like the 3 styles. Remember to take breaks and open the window when you're doing this to prevent overheating. Very, very good idea to regulate your body temperature properly. And drink lots of water too. I just drank like a liter of water. Oops, I can't say that word. I can't say the F word, guys. You can't say the word on YouTube. It's very fun, but it gets very mad, and then it obliterates your whole entire channel into oblivion. Okay, great. Now it's time for everybody's favorite part, money. Yes, we get to talk about pricing, the worst part of anything. Yes, I know this is a massive buzzkill to talk about, but you know, it's a very necessary part of furry culture, and having these suits is internalizing and understanding the financial cost and impact that they could have on you. As much as I want them not to be expensive, that's just how they are. These take a lot of work, and all of them are custom fitted. These are not cheap. A lot of non-furs like hear the price and they're like, what the hell, why would you ever pay that much for like a stupid costume like that? Oh my god, it's so expensive. Yeah, they're expensive. They're very expensive, and the price is going to fluctuate like crazy between each makers, and depending on what type of suit you want. But what I'm saying is like, it's important that you guys understand that these are not cheap. If you're really serious about commissioning a suit, you should already have the money saved, or you should realistically have good income that you can realistically pay it in a good amount of time. Like, don't screw yourself with the pricing. As a little tip from me to you, before we get any further, the head is the most expensive part of the suit by far, even more than the bodysuit, at least 99% of the time that I found. So keep that in mind if you are tied between a partial and a full suit, because a partial, yes, it is cheaper than a full suit, but not by a whole lot, not by as much as you would think. A partial would probably, like just a normal run-of-the-mill one, would probably run you about 2,000 USD. But yeah, from what I've seen, just doing a little price comparison in the EU and North American sphere, a general run-of-the-mill, like just wolf or fox full plantigrade, so like one of these normal leg suits, will run you around 3,000 to 3,500. It's kind of like an average price. Like I said, it's going to vary greatly between maker. Another little thing is that's a plantigrade suit. Digigrade suits tend to cost quite a bit more. If you're getting like a digigrade, that's going to cost you definitely over like 4K. They take a little bit longer to make. They're a lot bulkier. There's a lot more foam and stuff involved, so those are going to run a little more expensive. Basically, like the more foam and extra parts to the suit, the more expensive it's going to be because of like the labor and the material cost. And also keep in mind that if you are getting a realistic suit, those tend to cost a little bit more because it's a lot more intricate to get that realistic look. So my suit was around 2,500 US dollars. And that's actually really, I think on the lower end for a full suit, because I see a lot of people pay upward of 4 to 5K for a full suit. Like I said, it's going to vary between each maker, each suit, what you want in the suit, because some characters tend to run a little more complex. If your character is complex, your suit's going to run a little higher in the pricing. That's just how it is. You do have to consider shipping, both for one, a weird funny thing called a duct tape dummy, which we'll get into that later, and also the actual suit itself and maybe anything else that the maker would request. So for example, to get, when I commissioned this suit initially, I was still living in the central United States, so to actually send the duct tape dummy to Indonesia, where my maker was made, was about 150 USD, and that was using like the smallest box and just like, you know, folding up the duct tape dummy, which you can do, by the way. And then upon it being completed, I am now in southern Sweden. To ship the entire suit, it was around 250 USD, 50 of which was PayPal fees, because you do have to keep in mind the conversion fees for currency, because guess what? Indonesia doesn't use Swedish crowns for their currency. So every time you make a transaction or do anything abroad like that with a foreign maker, you're gonna have to pay a conversion fee, and of course the postage as well, which your maker will usually have a go-to postal service that they use. That's what mine did. DHL, for example, wanted to charge $700 for Germany. And let's say hypothetically, in a Minecraft server, theoretically, you could have your maker mark the suit as a value of $50, so that when you import it into a different country, you pay almost zero, like no import tax, because typically it's by percentage of the value. So if the value is low, you're paying a lot less in taxes to import it, theoretically. Not that I did that, of course. No way. I did everything as I was supposed to. And same thing goes when shipping the duct tape dummy. Just mark it as like a gift or something in Minecraft. So typically, like, this is the size of the box that it came in. Not terribly big. It's like the size of my torso. The head's gonna be the biggest part. And so keep in mind that if you are getting for example, a digigrade suit or one with like wings or other appendages, it's gonna cost more in shipping, both in weight and mostly in size, because if you have the big leg foam boxes, you either have to get it in 2 shipments or you have to send a giant box. Now, this could be kind of an issue if you're doing it internationally. But yeah, TLDR, things to consider price-wise when you get a suit is don't go through with it unless you actually have the funds available or you have enough to pay for it just outright. Don't screw yourself financially with these. These are expensive. They're fun though, worth it. I'm very happy. 2, the more complex your character is, the more expensive. 3, the head is the most expensive part of the suit. Yes, a partial is cheaper, but not by a ton. 4, keep in mind conversion fees and foreign transaction fees with bank and or PayPal and or any institutions abroad. If you are getting a foreign-made suit, yes, it will be typically cheaper to get one domestically, but then again, I would definitely recommend when you're getting a suit, don't base your maker off of purely just price. And 6, also keep in mind shipping fees and locational things. Like, for example, it's going to be more expensive to ship something across the Pacific Ocean than it is just to ship it over like a train from like Germany to South Sweden. You would think, don't use DHL. Yeah, and just keep in mind the shipping expenses. The bigger the distance, more weight, the bigger the box, it's going to be more expensive. Also, which company you use. Sometimes there's not a whole lot of options, but just talk with your maker. They typically have a go-to shipping company they tend to use. If possible, do as little payments as possible if you're getting like a foreign suit, just to avoid PayPal fees and transaction fees. Because let's say like, oh, I'm splitting it into 8 payments. Well, that's 8 times you're gonna have to pay a flat $15 conversion fee and or actually use the exchange ratio of the currencies and other bank fees on top of that. That adds up. So if you could do like 3 payments or less payments, you're gonna be actually getting a better price. And another tip that I need to give that I forgot in the last section before I started this recording is that try to avoid shipping things in or around holidays, because that will add a lot and that will cause delays too. New Year's and Christmas in specific. Don't do that. But anyway, let's talk about how to find an actual maker. To put it bluntly, Twitter. Just use Twitter. Definitely don't use it for social media, but definitely use it for marketing and commissioning. That's my recommendation. There's these wonderful little things called lists that people like to make on Twitter. Go ahead and just do that with makers and just see what they post, see what they draw, see what they make, see what they're doing, get a feel for their suits, really get a feel for their style, what kind of stuff are they doing, how much have they like improved over the years, how much has their style changed over the years too. That's also something important to keep in mind. You could also check Instagram, but Instagram is kind of annoying to use in my opinion, but that's also an option. I've never heard of anyone actually using Fur Affinity to commission a suit, so probably not a very good option either. Just to be blunt with you, the biggest and best option you can do for finding a maker is on Twitter, or X, as they want to call it. That's a really stupid name, by the way, Elon. Now, that's the next very important part is professionalism and being key on communication. So it's very important that you actually gauge your maker and then see if they're actually able to effectively communicate, because that is one of the most important things you can do in the making process, because the maker doesn't know what is going on in your head, and that goes with artists too. The artist can only, you two are two separate entities. You don't get to communicate telepathically, unfortunately. So the maker is left to what information you give them and their artistic freedom and interpretation of things and their skill set. So as you, the commissioner, it is very important for you to effectively and efficiently relay what you want from them. And so to do that, you need a maker that is able to communicate well. So I've heard some horror stories of makers ghosting people after receiving payments, or not communicating well, or delivering a completely different product that was advertised, or just taking an extremely long time with not responding to anybody. Yeah, and if you're getting serious about commissioning a maker, it is always good to talk with some of their previous clients and see what the process was like. Were they professional? Are they happy with the suit? So on, that kind of stuff. You also need to ask yourself, is this the person I want to be working with for 1 to 2 years during this whole process? And is this the person I trust to actually physically manifest my character, or someone that I am going to trust with a lot of money? This can happen with digital art too. Sometimes the maker and or artist opens up a slot they can't actually handle because they either want money or there's some other reason. Because yes, artists need money. I'm an artist too. We need to make a living off of money and what we do. But also, as the commissioner, you're putting a lot of trust into the artist and maker, and a lot of money as well. We have lives too. We need money to survive as well, unfortunately. And if the maker and or artist can't give you the time of day, they don't need to be commissioned. Just straight up. If you are giving them that much money and you're putting that much trust in them, and they can't either communicate well or hold up to the promise that they gave you, or follow their own terms of service, then they don't need to be commissioned. And this is not to be rude, this is just for your integrity and well-being as a commissioner. And it's okay to take these things into consideration, especially if you're doing something on the scale of commissioning a suit. And like anything else that you do, like, of course, be kind, be nice to people, be professional. And another tip is, don't immediately jump. If you see like a maker that you're like, oh, this is my dream maker, this is the one right here, I'm gonna commission them right now. Don't do that. It's definitely important to collect a small pool of makers, maybe bring it down to like a top 5 or like a top 3, and just sit on it for a while. Really think about, like, is this the maker that I want to bring my character to life? Is this the face that I want my character to have? Is this what I want to be? It took me a few months to actually pick out a suit. I was wanting a suit for a couple years. I was always following a bunch of suit makers, and then I found a couple that I liked. Then I narrowed it down to a couple I really, really liked. Both me and my husband really liked. And then we just let it kind of just sit, kind of like stew for a while. And then eventually, this came out of it, and I'm super happy. Don't rush the decision on your suit maker. It's a big one, it's important. Don't let it stress you out. Just kind of relax and just chill for a while and just sit on it. And like I said, it's important to pay attention to your maker. Once you've actually decided which one you want, go to their website, get a feel for it, read their terms and conditions, read all of their process and their pricing sheet, what they do, what they charge more for, what they charge less for, some of their rules of usage. Okay, great. At this point, let's assume that you have found your maker. You are going to go with this maker. You trust them. You like them a lot. They're super cool. Just the right style, just the right price range for you. You got the type of suit that they can make, the style that you want. It's good to go. Awesome. Well done. That's pretty much the hardest part, I would say. So what does the maker need from you as the commissioner? So one, have some solid artwork of your character. Give them pieces that represent your character well, their personality, their emotion, things you want to kind of see on the suit. Give your maker some inspiration with the artwork that you give them. And two, a really solid ref sheet. Make sure it covers like all sides of your character, all the proportions, all the color palettes, expressions, and or any extra information that you might need. Make sure it represents your character well and it's clear and well made. If you don't have one, go onto Twitter. There's tons of really fantastic, talented artists out there that would be more than happy to take a commission for a ref sheet for you. And then you need one other funny thing. You need the funny dummy, the duct tape dummy. I mentioned this earlier, so what exactly is that? It is a complete duct tape kind of like shell you put over your body. It's an analog of your exact body shape and form. Yes, this takes a little bit of time to make. It will take a few hours, and no, you absolutely cannot do this alone. Don't even bother thinking about that. You need somebody else to help you, because essentially you are rolling duct tape over every single part of your body to make a really tight-fitting analog. Don't make it too tight. Make sure it is relatively loose. Don't restrict any sort of blood flow when making this. There's a lot of really good tutorials online. Definitely watch a couple of those before and while you're doing it as well. What I would recommend is getting go to your local hardware store and getting like a painter's jumpsuit, like the really cheap just polyester or felt cotton ones that are like a disposable one-piece suit you put over your entire body to protect you when painting, because you basically just put that on and then you can just roll duct tape over the whole thing and then you can just cut out of it just fine. That, and some people use saran wrap, but that gets extremely hot and that could be kind of cumbersome and difficult to cut. Speaking of cutting, use safety scissors, and if you are the person that is doing the rigging, the duct taping, and the cutting, go slow and communicate. Because I have let me show you. I have a pretty big scar right where that vein is. From getting cut out of a fursuit duct tape dummy, because my partner was using some scissors and was going too fast for some reason. And when I said stop, didn't stop. And yes, when a big chunk was missing from my arm and it was bleeding profusely. And since I was American at the time, I did not have health insurance and could not go to the hospital. So I ended up basically just taping the wound shut, and it made a pretty gnarly scar. So officially the biggest scar on my body is from making a fursuit duct tape dummy. So be very careful when cutting out and don't make it too tight, because if it is relatively loose but still form-fitting, it'll be easier to cut out of. So don't make it too tight. Make sure that it doesn't restrict any blood flow. Make sure it's nice and form-fitting but loose. Have somebody help you. It will take a lot of duct tape and a lot of time. Just go slowly. Watch some tutorials. Be especially careful around this region. There's no need to go around the neck either. You can get really cheap duct tape at a dollar store for a lot cheaper than at a hardware store. And also get one of those disposable painter's jumpsuits. And again, watch some tutorials and how-tos. There's a lot of really good video explanations that you can watch on YouTube. Slow, safe, and communicate. Those three things when making the duct tape dummy. Also, your maker will be able to help you with this as well for tips. And it is okay to fold this. Don't feel like you need to get a giant box when sending this to your maker. If your maker is fussy, my maker had no issue with me folding it up like that, so. And then at that point, you go to the post office and you ship it. Don't forget the customs form like I did if you're shipping internationally. Also keep in mind the price. Something that weighs less than half a kilogram will cost $100 if you're sending it from somewhere like the US to Indonesia or that far of a distance. DHL is very expensive. Keep that in mind. It's good, but very expensive. Right, so at this point, you would have sent the duct tape dummy to your maker. You have your maker, you send him the duct tape dummy, all your references, everything that they need. You sent them measurements of your head, your hands and feet, everything else that they need. Your maker is good to go. They have everything from you that they need to get started to make the suit. So at this point in time, as the commissioner, it is your job to relay to the maker what you want out of it. It is your job to bridge that artistic vision that you have to your maker. And then if there is something specific on the suit, it's very important that you tell them before they start making it. So best to get all that out before you do that. So if you're commissioning a suit, write down everything, every little detail that you have in mind down. And then prior to him starting the suit, make sure that the maker has everything that they need. and all that information. And so at this point, the maker is just doing their stuff, and it is up to you just to communicate. It is okay to ask for updates. Ask for updates. But yes, it is always okay to ask for updates. Don't be obnoxious with it, but you are a paying client, and you're putting a lot of trust in your maker, like I said. So it is okay to ask what is going on with the suit. At this point, let's assume that you are at the end of the process and that the suit is complete and that you are happy with it. There's no extra changes or extra additions you want to make to it. Like I mentioned earlier, your maker typically will have a go-to postal service that they use for shipping, either for domestic or international. My maker did. We considered DHL, but that is way too expensive. It was sent here by an Indonesian company to South Sweden and then fulfilled by PostNord once it got to Skåne. Like I mentioned, to get the full plantigrade suit from Indonesia to Skåne was about $250, $50 of which was PayPal fees because PayPal is just stupid. So something important to keep in mind is actually receiving the package. Like I said, theoretically, mark the package as a gift and or undervalue the actual pricing listed on the customs form so you pay less taxes, hypothetically, in Minecraft. And then the part of actually receiving the package. So you need to keep in mind that it is very possible that the box will be sitting on your doorstep by itself for a long period of time if you either live alone or you have a partner or a household where people aren't home a whole lot. I would definitely recommend not having it shipped to your door and having it shipped to the post office or a P.O. box, because a lot of times people are at work or they're doing something and then your suit's gonna arrive. You've been going through this whole process for like a year or two or even longer, and you've paid a lot of money and been waiting, and it's your character, and suddenly the box is either stolen or it's wet or damaged, or some other horrible thing happens to it because it was left outside because you couldn't get to it, because that's just how life works. Definitely get it to a depot.
Alright, so let's do a little recap before we wrap up the video. Too lazy didn't read. Have a good idea of what you want before starting the process. Do research and follow some suitors to get a good feel. Make sure you vibe with your maker. Twitter is great for finding one. The suit head is the most expensive part. Partials are cheaper, but not by as much as you think. The more complex your character, the more expensive the suit, design, and anatomy. When you buy a full suit, you also get a partial. When it comes to the duct tape dummy, slow and careful. Watch some good tutorials. Communicate with your maker. This is your suit. Help your maker bring your idea to life. Keep in mind shipping for both the duct tape dummy and your completed full suit. Mark it as a gift and or set the value low on the customs form. This is of course just for the Minecraft server. Make sure somebody can receive the package or have it sent to be picked up at a post office. Take breaks and drink. Hydrate when suiting. They are warm. Use it and have fun. Suiting at home is also great. Awesome. I hope this helps, and please ask questions or just chat in the comments. Let's focus on building a nice little community here. Fursuits are a lot of fun and can really help a lot of people enjoy life. I would certainly recommend getting one if you are able. That's pretty much all I have for you today. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this. Enjoy life as much as you can. Try to make somebody happy. I'll see you in the next one.